Morning, everyone. Can we confirm the broadcast has started? I think we've had the thumbs up. So good morning to those watching on YouTube. I'm Councillor Mike Quigley, Chairman of the Planning and Rights of Way Committee. I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting, which is both taking place here in the Council Chamber and being broadcast live on YouTube. So we move on to the agenda then. The minutes of the last... Apologies comes after the minutes on my agenda, so... The draft minutes of the last meeting held on the 17th of September are included as item 3 of the agenda. Can we agree those minutes as a true record of that meeting, please? All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, that's... Oh, that's... I understand, Councillor Ogle. Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. I have two notified ones. Councillor Philip Owen for other reasons, and John Ogle is substituting, and Councillor Rachel Madden for other reasons, with no substitute that's been notified. Councillor Henshaw.
Councillor Sybil Fielding, Chair, she's not well. So.
Thank you for that. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members or officers present have any interest to declare in the agenda today? Members? None? Officers? No? None? Fine. Declarations of lobbying. Any member present have any instances of lobbying to declare on the agenda today? No, and I certainly don't know of anything that has come directly, so I think there has been no formal lobbying to the committee on this item on the agenda. So agenda item 5, which is the planning application for variation of 3 conditions relating to the stockpiling and recycling of waste material on the Daneshill Landfill site, Daneshill Road, Lound. And I think, Joel, this one's... Oh, it's yours. Can I formally move the recommendations and ask that the Vice Chairman
Formally second, Chair, and reserve the right to speak.
Sorry, Jonathan. I'm so used to it being Joel. I think there has been some issues today. I think everybody knows that the printer software has gone down, so people are struggling with laptops because we haven't got any paper copies. So please bear with us.
Good morning. Thank you. Apologies. So we have 3 Section 73 variation applications to extend the use of the material recycling compound for importation, storage, stockpiling and recycling of inert construction and demolition waste until December 2029 at Daneshill Landfill site, and thereby defer restoration of the area in which these activities take place. These are being reported to Planning and Rights Way Committee on the grounds that the parish council, a neighbouring parish council, has objected, and we have also received 5 neighbour objections. The application site is located between the villages of Torworth and Lound and forms part of the wider Daneshill Landfill, a long-standing general non-hazardous landfill facility which benefits from planning permission for the deposit of waste until 2048. The site is occupied and managed by FCC Environment under a long-term lease from the County Council. The wider landfill, as pictured here, is occasionally active as dictated by local and market demands and was most recently operational from August 2021 through to May 2023. The site is currently closed with the recent waste cells capped. In recent years, the material recycling site has only been used for temporary stockpiling of imported clean restoration soils used for capping works on the landfill site. Surrounding the site are a mix of agricultural land, woodland and former gravel pits, now Daneshill Lakes and Woodland Nature Reserve and local wildlife site, 370 metres to the southwest at the top left corner of the photo you're looking at now on that slide. The closest residential properties are a traveller site on Daneshill Road, approximately 200 metres to the south. Start from the beginning now. I will continue. The closest residential properties are a traveller site on Daneshill Road, approximately 200 metres to the south, separated by dense woodland at the top right hand of the photo, that's the previous slide, and Daneshill Cottages, which you can see here, which are 450 metres to the west of the application site, near the site entrance. So the application site consists of a mix of bare, disturbed ground and broken concrete, hard standing, deriving from the former Royal Ordnance Factory, which was on the site. The periphery is established with non-self-set vegetation, and the site is well screened by woodland and is not visible from outside the site. The site and wider landfill complex are accessed off Daneshill Road via an established access road, and associated with the landfill function are other permitted structures, including a weighbridge, site cabin, wheel wash, leachate tanks, workshop, and gas management compound. Under the approved restoration plan shown on this slide, which identifies the recycling compound within the wider site, the recycling compound is ultimately due to be subsumed by the landfill site and then restored to a mix of native broadleaf planting and open heathland. A large area of the landfill is already restored to woodland and grassed with further aftercare works to take place. Further to the previous period of cessation of landfilling in 2718, pursuant to condition 38 of the wider landfill permission, the Waste Planning Authority sought an alternative restoration scheme to secure an earlier restoration. A revised short-term restoration plan requiring reduced quantities of soil imports, revised contours and an amended scheme was submitted. However, this scheme was not considered acceptable on landscape grounds and was not approved. There is currently a large unfilled void on the south-east side of the landfill mound, as visible on that slide there. Whilst the wider landfill has permission for waste deposit until 2048, it remains to be seen whether the final restoration levels and landform, as per the approved restoration master plan, will be achieved. The Council will continue to review this matter. Operations on the application site for material recycling date back to initial planning permission granted in 1997, with 2 further site extensions north and east forming the basis of the 3 applications here. The permissions were temporary, and in 2018 permission was granted for continuation of the use until 2023. Although currently mothballed, it is envisaged the site will operate as before, with recycling of materials such as rubble, soil, sand and gravel taking place in the open, with no additional buildings or fixed structures. Bassetlaw District Council's planning and environmental health teams have both responded, raising no objections. Torworth Parish Council objects and believe the site should be restored by 2029, and cite cumulative negative impacts experienced from operation of the wider site, including contamination, traffic, heritage and environmental loss, and ejected waste from vehicles. County Council's Nature Conservation team raised no objection in principle on the condition that measures are taken to prevent natural succession at the periphery, and also that an ecological survey is carried out prior to recommencement of operations. 5 public representations have been received objecting to the continuation of operations at the site and deferral of restoration and negative impacts such as contamination, traffic, disruption, heritage and environmental loss. The applicant states that not extending the deadline would result in the permanent loss of an Environment Agency permitted recycling facility, without which recycling that could potentially happen on site would have to be managed at more distant locations, incurring associated emissions and costs. Granting planning permission would allow the facility to be available at immediate notice to react quickly to market conditions and commence recycling activities as and when required. Ecological, environmental and amenity impacts have been considered and will continue to be managed by controls in the planning conditions. The principle of using the site has previously been established under previous permissions, having been assessed under relevant national and local planning policy. The waste hierarchy sets out the national planning policy for waste, and the waste core strategy identifies that recycling waste and preparing it for reuse is preferable to disposal. It is considered that the site could be used for beneficial and sustainable material recycling in line with this policy. It's therefore recommended that the 3 applications are granted permission, subject to the conditions appended to the report, to allow continuation of the use of the material recycling site until 31st of December 2029. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. I now invite Councillor Tracy Taylor, the County Council for the local area, to speak on the application. I remind Councillor Taylor that she has up to 10 minutes.
Only 10. Thank you. Morning, members. Morning, Chairman. Once again, you're considering a significant application for industrial operations in one of my divisional villages. Indeed, 3 applications to vary the conditions on extant permissions to extend the life of the site by a further 6 years. That might not seem much to you, but it's another application that's causing extreme concern for residents in the community of Lound and neighbouring villages, including those on the transportation route. I'm speaking today at the specific request of Lound Parish Council, and your papers reference the objections from Torworth Parish Council, which they have also discussed with me. Torworth suffers particularly from the HGV traffic, including regular incidents of vehicles in roadside ditches on the narrow lanes and repeated debris shed from unsheeted loads. And this despite the planning conditions in the extant permission. We seem unable to enforce those conditions and make this operator behave any better. This extension of time is important, not only because it would allow the currently permitted operations to continue, but more significantly because it would keep the door open for operations which are not yet permitted, but about which the applicant is embroiled in ongoing legal and regulatory challenges. You've heard that this site is currently mothballed, but simultaneously that the facility is too valuable to be lost if permission isn't granted. I'm struggling to reconcile having a mothballed site with an operator claiming that it's an invaluable resource. This committee considered an application a few years ago for this site for operations that would include the importation of potentially contaminated soils, specifically listing the possibility of asbestos particles in the loads. Whilst NCC approved that application in principle, that decision was called in by the Secretary of State in the absence of a full environmental impact assessment, and permission was ultimately refused when the applicant did not proceed to submit the further required paperwork. The EA also subsequently refused permission for those particular operations. Since that time, the applicant has appealed the EA's refusal of the discrete application and has also sought to vary the terms of the current operating permit to allow the inclusion of contaminated materials, including asbestos. A confusion of EA opinions and decisions, including a reversal and some failures to consult with the public at appropriate times then led to a full public inquiry to consider the applicant's appeals against the refusals. The outcome of that inquiry is still currently awaited. So you see why the decision that you make today is so significant, because this is not simply about extending the life of the existing operations, which I repeat are mothballed, but of creating the circumstances where a site that should have ceased operating in December last year remains open whilst the ongoing legal challenges over more concerning activities and operations play out. This committee previously considered the IGAS request to extend the restoration phase of the site at Misson Springs during the moratorium on fracking, and members very sensibly applied the planning rules of the day rather than making a decision based on the future possibility of the moratorium being lifted. This application also requires you to make a sensible and proper decision and not to inadvertently facilitate the future aspirations of an operator who has not been a trusted friend to its host community. It's time for this site to cease operations and for the full restoration to proceed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do officers have any points of clarification following Councillor Taylor's presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Taylor made a point about the fact the site is presently mothballed, and you know, her confusion in terms of the applicant saying that it's still required, which is I understand. I think this is I think in terms of the site's operation since general landfilling ceased at the site, operations have been on and off, intermittent at the site. It is the last landfill site in the county, and whilst waste policy and the decisions that this committee make are always, in terms of waste development, are always trying to seek to push waste further up the hierarchy, still acknowledge that there will always be some element of waste that needs to be, which can't be reused or recycled, and there does need to be some landfill capacity. And so and I think we've seen that there was that couple of year period recently when the site was operational, and it has since then closed down. But there is the potential that it could be required again. That's the wider landfill site. In terms of this application here as well, the inert recycling facility, it's likely that as contracts come up, the use of the site again could be quite intermittent. And so the fact that it's mothballed at the present time, I don't think necessarily should preclude us from looking to seek to allow the facility to continue, because it's likely to require, its capacity is likely to be required at points in the future. The other point I just want to pick up was obviously, yes, we have dealt with other applications in relation to the bringing the hazardous waste in, including asbestos bearing materials. Councillor Taylor is correct insofar as we subsequently eventually refused the application because the EIA didn't come in, and we're aware of the EA permit process, appeal process that's going through. But ultimately, there are controls in terms of what materials can be brought into this site under these permissions, and that doesn't include these hazardous materials. And so I do consider that's kind of like a separate matter. We might need to deal with a future application for those hazardous materials, but that's not a kind of a matter that we're discussing today, I don't feel.
Thank you. I now open the issue for debate by members. If anybody has any comments or observations. No one? No? In that case, then I will move to the vote, and the recommendation is on the screen that permission be granted, subject to the conditions set out in appendices 1, 2 and 3. Could I have a show of hands, all those in favour of the recommendation? Have you got that? Yeah. Anyone against? 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I make it 6.
Yes, that.
Can everyone please raise their hands?
Can you raise your hands a bit higher so we don't miss you?
For my 4 eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So that's failed.
So we are 5, 4, and 6 against. So therefore the application fails.
Now I need a planning reason why they
Yeah.
did it.
Well, yes.
We have to.
Those of you who voted against now have to come up with some valid planning reasons to refuse the application. I'm glad that I don't have to do that.
I may as well stick my neck over the parapet, Chairman. No, Graham, no. Sorry, Chair. I was just going to ask if we could have a 5-minute break to discuss this and then come back.
Yeah, we can do that. So can we turn the recording off and resume in 5 minutes? Thank you for your patience, everyone. The feed is now back on. So we've had the vote, and those that voted against the officer's recommendation have now got to give the committee reasons for the refusal.
Can I just speak to the
Yeah.
procedure? Sorry, just before we get into that, just to explain some of the procedure that we'll need to undertake now. So members will need to determine and articulate a reason for refusal, because the refusal itself needs to be a positive act. By refusing to agree with the officer, you haven't actually officially refused it yet. So you need to articulate a reason for refusal, and that reason for refusal will be voted on. My advice to members is that the specific wording of that reason for refusal is delegated to officers to put in writing in accordance with the Council's Code of Best Practice to be approved after today. But if our members make it clear the basis and the policies that they're choosing to refuse the application on, that will be what you're required to do right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Chairman. And I just want to make clear from the off that, as with all planning decisions, this is a balance, and it's a balance that is held between the extension with regard to this yard site against its ability to be restored. In what is currently a moth-balled location, we feel that the aspect of nature conservation here is key. And like I say, it is a balance between nature and obviously the continued use of the site. But as a result, we feel this site could actually be brought forward in terms of its conservation, and that restoration could happen in that area and return it to a more natural state. And for that reason, nature conservation, specifically in terms of material planning considerations, is the reason that we are refusing the application today.
Jazz, you want?
Could you just be clear on the policy that you would like to base that on, please, Councillor?
Thank you. Yes, policy WCS13, which is protecting and enhancing our environment.
Are there any? Is this just the one reason for refusal, or are there any others? Anybody else wanted to bring into the equation? No. So we're just talking about the one. The one. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Wheeler or Councillor Moxon, doesn't matter. Right. In that case, then those of you who voted against the officer's recommendation now have to vote. Those that voted for the officer's recommendation can choose whether they vote for the refusal or abstain or whatever they wish to do. So all those in favour. No. That's part of the recommendation, isn't it? Yeah. That's part of the recommendation. Yeah. All those in favour of the reason for refusal and the recommendation that officers help work up the actual wording? Thank you. Those against? And abstentions? Thank you. That concludes the item on the agenda, and those reasons now need to be worked up into a formal statement for the applicant. Right, we move on then to Development Management Progress Report, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. This is the report bring to committee each meeting, summarises the decisions that have been made recently, applications received, and also provides a timetable of future applications due to come before the committee in the next few months. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any observations, questions, anyone on the future planning? No, none? In that case, we note the report, and that concludes the business of the meeting, and I bring the meeting to a close. Thank you for your time and participation. Can we now confirm that the YouTube broadcast has ended